Hi everybody. I just wanted to share some information with you. A couple of people on the last video when I was introducing the book reached out and said, hey, where could I get it? So I did say, well, send me an email and I'll point you in the right direction, but nobody ever did. So I'm not really sure why that happened, but I'm here to help you. And so this video is basically saying that I've had some time to look at this book. Let me tell you, for somebody who is new to the hobby or the interest of vintage Rolex watches, specifically the Datejust, this is a godsend. So all I'm trying to say with this video is if you are a new person or if you're someone that has some experience or a lot of experience and you're looking for some references, I would love to share this book with you. All you got to do is ask me, can you look up this reference, and I'll reach into this. It's like an encyclopedia, let me tell you. So I've had some time to look at it. And if we go to page 24, we have a timeline that starts in 1945, gives me a nice little history, and it stops at 1990, which the author believes is the end of the maximum vintage. Anything kind of like after 1977, I believe, becomes kind of neo. So the book goes from 45 to 1990, and there's this nice little timeline here that I've been enjoying. So, I can kind of help you there. Then when we flip to page 74, which is where I am currently reading, excuse me, having lots of fun. Then we kind of go to page 86. And of course, I'm interested in the 4-digit and the 5-digit Datejust. And of course, if I look at the functions, crystal, and dials, I will find out very quickly that the 4-digit is time and date, acrylic, and pie pan. I think that's kind of up to 1977. Then they talk about a soft transition period where it goes from the pie pan dials to flat, which then becomes the 5-digit series. And I like the brother or the successor to the 1604, which is, the 1601 then becomes in 1978 through to 1988, the 16014 series to the 1601. And thankfully in the book they do describe about how awesome it is that it kept the acrylic, it did lose the pie pan, it did go to a flat dial, but it did pick up the quick set feature, which some people like and some people don't care about. But then when we look at the series 162 5-digit, and anything after 1988, it goes to a sapphire crystal, which a lot of people say isn't really sexy. Super durable, but it doesn't give you that vintage vibe anymore. So I'm not going past 1988. So there's a lot of stuff going on here on page 86. So that's super nice. Then, you flip to page 98, and it gives you this very nice Rolex Datejust calibers from 1945 to 1990. So you get this nice little, what it looks like and what it's kind of doing. 1945, 1950, 1956. And it just goes on. 57. And then this is kind of where the 1601 really kind of shows up for a lot of the literature that I'm reading, because it takes on the caliber 1565 and 1575. But I understand that it's not unusual to see something that says 1570. So that starts in 1959. And here's kind of the interesting thing that I've discovered. Because as someone who is more attracted to the 5-digit, the 16014 series, which starts in 1977, so it's the caliber 3035, you quickly have this little snapshot, right? Introduced in 77, it's got the automatic winding time, it's got the quick set, but then the beat rate is 28.8. The joules are 27, and the power reserve is 42 hours. What I find interesting is that you would think that a newer caliber, or the 30-35, would be a little more power reserved than the good old 1959 caliber 1565 or 1575, but really 1570. To the 1601, it has a same thing, right? Automatic, winding, time, and date. No quick set, no problem. You know, the beat rate is slightly lower, right? 19.8 versus 28.8. Okay. But then the joules are 26 on the 59 caliber, and the joules are 27 on the 30-35 caliber. But this is what I find really interesting. The power reserve on the 1959 introduction of the 1570 caliber has a power reserve time of 48 hours versus the 30-35 at 42. I found that really interesting. But again, you know, you're kind of getting a whole snapshot right through to the end, 1988, which ends in caliber 30-31. Then if we flip to page 108, we are introduced to a section called Dials and Hands, and this is super awesome. If we turn over, there's a little signature period, which I find really awesome. So in 1963, or up until 1963, it would just say Swiss, but then the loom was radium. And of course, from the little bit of reading that I've done, we've discovered that radium is not really friendly, and so it was kind of banned in 63. And then the loom changes, and so does the signature. The signature goes from 63 to 1999. You will see the capital letter T, then the word Swiss, and then another T. And the loom is tritium. Then from 63 to 99, you will also see, you know, capital T, Swiss T, made T, tritium. 64 to 67, capital T, Swiss T, with like the back arrow 25, tritium. And then from 67 to 99, same thing. T Swiss dash T, you know, less than 25. So, you know, nice little signature reference there. And then, you know, you boot along to the next one, and it's page 136, and you've got specific dials. So Sigma, honeycomb, it just goes on and on. Gilt, tropical dials. Man, the book's fantastic. You know, Roman numeral dials. Ghost dials, had no idea. No loom dials. And so here's something I want to stop on for a second. So snooping around online, I did come across, and I'm not going to throw any shade on Buddy, but he had a no loom dial with a loomed hour and minute marker, or hands. And so I reached out and I said, just curious, have the hour and minute hands been swapped? And he came back with no, that they were original to the watch. So I'm not really sure if I believe him, because the literature says that the Asian market, Japan, you know, didn't want anything to do with radium, so they kind of banned the watches that had radium. So Rolex, to get around that, created no loom dials and hands. So not really sure what's going on there. So some countries had particularly strict laws regarding the import of radioactive materials during the 60s. Japan is a prime example, which is why no loom dials are also referred to as Japan dials. I love this book because I'm learning so much shit. So Rolex opted to supply these regions with loomless watches, but they opted to do it with efficiency in mind. So rather than creating entirely different no loom dials, they just opted to skip the looming stage of production. This explains why no loom dials do feature the T signing below the 6 o'clock marker. These dials were simply taken from the regular batch, which was already printed. The hands are different though. Loomed hands featured a slot for the loom to sit in. no lume dials come with closed, fully polished hands. And this is where it kind of caught me off guard, because when I was looking at that vendor's watch that had no lume on the dial, which was Paipan, you could see that there was lume and slots on the hour and minute. So I don't understand how that, so I think they were swapped. But as someone who is learning to identify these certain configurations, you can already kind of see cracks in the armor and realize that there's some shady shit going on out there. No lume dials came with closed, fully polished hands. This is something you want to look for when buying a no lume Datejust. We've already talked about that. Both the dial and the handset should be correct. So that tells me that that dude was lying to me. You may also come across dials that had their lume removed, meaning you will see the slot in the hand and minute markers, but there's no lume there. So again, that's shady, because we just found out that they're supposed to be closed and fully polished, so there should be no slots. This can be done for a host of reasons, but it usually leaves some traces. You are likely to see a ghosted outline of the lume plots on the dial under magnification. So you have to really be careful. No lume dials are uncommon and desirable in their own right, since there is no radioactive material going on, blah, blah, blah. And for whatever reasons, they're not commanding a big premium. So lots of interesting stuff going on here. And of course, I'm looking at a 1600 no lume dial. Super beautiful. And then in the book, we can kind of zoom along. And of course, we're in a Jubilee bracelet kind of section. And, you know, there's a nice little reference here, right? 62510H, Jubilee on a 555 end link. Then there's also a reference 62523H, Jubilee on a 455B end link. You know, stuff that you should really know, at least for myself. And then I had no idea that there were 3 kinds of Jubilee bracelets. We've got folded. You know, in the beginning, when I wasn't really looking at the watches carefully, I only thought that there was just one Jubilee bracelet. But when you start reading this beautiful book and you realize that there are 3, you can kind of see the folded, what they call the American or Mexican Jubilee, solid. And then you've got something that looks like a D, which is their Swiss Jubilee bracelet. Super funky shit to know. And then when you look at the clasp, you know, you've got one that has the crown a little higher up, one that's actually like the crown on the American and Mexican Jubilee, and then again a little higher up again on the Swiss. So you can kind of see the clasp differences as well. So that was super awesome to learn. And then before I blast away, at the very end of the book, page 214, I have all of the reference periods from 1959, starting with the 1600 reference, which then gives me the caliber, the bezel, and the size, all the way through to 1999. So if you're out there and you're like trying to figure some stuff out, man, let me share this information with you. All you have to do is just lay down a comment and say, hey man, can you look at this reference and can you tell me, you know, what is the, you know, here's the common one, right? 1601. The period was between 59 and 78. The caliber was 1570. It was fluted and the size was 36 millimeters. And then it just changes. And of course, I like the 16014, which came in 78. So if I boot along here and look down, I find it 1978 to 1988. The caliber was 3035. It was fluted, also 36 millimeter. And, you know, of course, it's got everything else, right up until 99. So I think it's really, really awesome. And I am here to share all this information with you. All you have to do is ask. And finally, I thought this was kind of cool too. We have all of the book provides me, and I would love to share with you, all of the Rolex serial numbers from 1945 to 1990. So if we go and look at the, well, let's see here. The 1601 came along in 59. So if we look at the serial number for a 1601 or a Rolex in 1959, you should see something along the lines of 399.453. And then I'm looking at my 16014 Datejust, which came along in 78. So that will be 5.000.000. And all the way to 1988, we've got those sequences, and it ends in R598.200. I mean, this is super awesome, cool shit. I am eating this book up. I am loving it. I am learning so much. It was worth every penny. It wasn't cheap. This book was not cheap to buy. But as you know, nothing is cheap when we're dealing with Rolex. I hope you've enjoyed this little kind of quick breeze through what I've learned in the last week or so, maybe 2 weeks. Once again, I'm here to share this reference with you. If you want to know something, ask me the question. I will go dig for it, and I will reply with either a comment, or I'll just make a video and I'll give you a little more in-depth. I'll read you a couple of the pages. I'll read you the whole section. I want to be able to help you arm yourself with as much information as possible to help you make an intelligent decision, because that's what I'm doing. I'm having a really good time. Don't be shy, please. Don't be shy. Just reach out and ask me if I can help you, and I will. It's the best part of my channel, getting a comment and helping you solve your problems or answering a question and kind of keeping you going in the right direction, because I'm going to buy a watch and I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing with the right. In the section of the book that I'm reading right now, before I blast away, we're talking about configuration right now. And the configuration wants to touch on a couple of things. Here's what I am being advised. This is what I'm being advised to look at. This section in page 72 is like buying a vintage Datejust. We are to look at configuration, originality, condition, and set content. How awesome is that? And then, the book is holding my hand, and I am on page 74, just reading up configuration, because I want to make an intelligent decision, because I'm serious. All right, that's it for me. I hope that you've enjoyed this little bit, and we're going to talk to you again. Next week's pay week, I'll give you a financial on where my savings are in regards to buying this beauty, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I appreciate you. Be well. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon. See ya.